Hello? Hello?
Hi, Mayor James. I
There
couldn't
we
find
are.
I couldn't find my unmute button.
Oh, okay.
I should have that one figured out by now.
All right. Don't feel bad. Don't feel bad at all. Oh. All right. Are we ready?
Yes.
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 All right. Well, at this time, my clock say that it's 6:34, and I will call this teleconference city committee workshop to order. And we'll do a short invocation. Dear Lord, once more and again, we assemble here to take care of the business of High Springs. And we ask that you continue to lead us, continue to show us, continue to give us the guidance that we need to do exactly the best things for this city. Have us be disagreeable when it's time to be, but do not make us be, well, I said that all wrong, but, but help us and guide us through this meeting tonight. And these things we ask in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, and let's do our pledge. I see a pledge back there. I see a flag back there.
Yes.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
Flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. Ms. Pong, we're going to ask you for roll call.
Yes, ma'am. Mayor James,
I'm here.
Vice Mayor Jones,
here.
Commissioner Ambrose,
Present.
Commissioner Jamison,
Here.
Commissioner Williams, who's not present at the moment. He did advise that he would try to sign on. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, with that, we have item number 1, discussion of the High Springs wastewater and water systems and future development. Who's on the floor?
Bruce.
All right, good evening. So this is a follow-up to the workshop we had back in October, I believe it was. And we were tasked with trying to find out how many vacant lots we had in reference to sewer, to look at how many vacant lots we had versus what we had left in sewer capacity. So we went through and looked at what we had. There's currently 363 lots that are available to go on the sewer system at this point in time that are pre-approved lots within the city. As of today, we have 92 active home permits that are being built at this point in time. We have 13 permits in waiting that are in the process of being approved. And the South Side project is approximately 48 to 50 homes. I believe it's 50 homes. And that puts us at about 155 homes that are currently under construction or waiting to be put under construction in the next couple days to be hooked to the sewer system. After speaking with Tim Norman and going back and forth and looking at some numbers, currently we are flowing somewhere between 190,000 gallons a day to 200,000 gallons a day at the sewer plant. So on an average of 195,000 gallons. Just to give you a little back history, currently there's around 1,775 users of the sewer system online at this point in time. We have around approximately 1,700 grinder pumps in the ground, which with reserve pumps that we have is somewhere around $2.8 million in assets, with about $200,000 in parts and some other bits and pieces on the shelf right now. That is currently where we're at on our end of the sewer system. The engineers were looking at possibly doing a re-rate on the plant. I'll let Tim update you on that, where we're at, what we're looking at doing there. If our math is correct, the city manager wanted me to look at what 95% of the sewer plant would be, how much we would have left. I'll let Tim get into all that with you, but somewhere in the neighborhood with the current capacity, about 22,000 gallons at 95%, give or take. I'll have to let Tim give you the exact numbers on that. everything I just said, we'll make it real short and sweet. We have about 150, we have 155 homes currently either under construction or being hooked to the sewer system at this point in time. And that leaves about 210 lots left that are buildable at this point. So I'll turn it over to Tim Norman and let him explain his number to you and what they need. Can't hear you. Can't hear you, Tim.
He's muted.
Take it off mute.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Good evening, Tim Norman, Midtower and Associates. As Bruce said, there's basically about, by staff's count, about a total of 440 vacant lots that are in the system. Using 150 gallons per day per connection, that comes out to about 66,000 gallons. So basically, there's about 66,000 potential gallons of flow to the wastewater plant. As Bruce said, we're flowing about, as of October, operating report, we're flowing at 195,000 gallons. So you add those two together, you're at 261,000. Our plant's only ready for 240,000, so it will not handle that. We have looked at possibly re-rating the plant, which is something that we would do on paper. We'd present some information to the Department of Environmental Protection to try to get the plant re-rated and the capacity increased. That would not involve any construction, just simply permitting. We believe, going through the numbers, that we can get the plant re-rated to 300,000 gallons. There's no guarantee of that. We have to go through the process, but basically the plant was designed for a stronger strength sewage than you're actually receiving. So it allows us to increase its capacity and everything still work properly. So we believe we can get the plant rated for 300,000. Again, there's no guarantee of that. It may be a number less than that. But if we get the 300,000 at your current rate of growth, it's going to take us through probably the end of 2023, and we would need to have additional capacity online in 2024. There's a spreadsheet there that kind of outlines all that. I can go through that in detail if you like, but that kind of gives us where we're at. So if we're still trying to get funding for the wastewater plant expansion, if we can do the re-rating, it's going to buy us several years. And that's not assuming any of these major developments of thousands of units at a time are coming in. That's just basically if you continue on the path you're on with the developments you have now. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Tim, this is Linda Jones.
Yes,
We
ma'am.
would have the current system re-rated at 300,000.
That's what we believe. We believe we can do that. That based on the numbers we're seeing, we think that's what we're going to present to DEP. They have the ultimate say so in that, but we think we can get the plant re-rated certainly for at least 30 to 60,000 gallons. We think 60,000 gallons is the right number.
Okay.
That would take us to 300,000 total.
And put us through 2023.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
How many
Hey.
homes are you averaging, thinking what the build is going to be each year?
Basically 120 homes a year, 10 a month is what we've projected. That's what you have seen in the recent past. I know that goes up and down somewhat, but that's what you've been running the last year or so. And that can change. That can go up and that can go down.
And that's not approving any new subdivision. This is currently with what we have going on. Our average bill rate right now, permit full rate is about 10 a month. So that's not factoring in any of these other subdivisions we talked about. That's just with the lots we currently have. Would take us to 2023.
Okay.
What's the time frame on getting the increased capacity rating?
We think that's going to happen in early 2021. So we would think by spring of 2021, we'd go through the process. We would have that. We would know what our new capacity would be.
What happens if they don't? I mean,
Well,
they will get some more, excuse me, they will give us more, but it may not be what we want.
Well, we're going to ask for another 60,000 gallons. When they see the numbers, they'll either agree with that or look at something less, and we'll have to see what.
But could that put us in jeopardy before 2023 then?
Well, yes, if we don't get, the capacity, the increase in capacity, we think, then we're gonna, we'll be running out of capacity probably at the close to the end of 2021, 22.
Question.
Now, what
Mayor?
happened? Go ahead.
Okay. So this, you're talking about just subdivisions. Am I right, Bruce? The homes you built to my building.
No, the total number of vacant lots is based off everything in the city right now that we have vacant. The spreadsheet I sent out shows what subdivisions they are, just to give you a general geographical area where the majority of the lots are, but there are some clustered around the core that we did not include in the map, and that's where the 440 numbers coming from.
So you said that's not, is it, these lots you're talking about, that's just including just the subdivision you have in this package here?
He's talking about individual homes besides that.
This is just counting, in the packet here is just showing the subdivision breakdown, not the core cluster of the city. That's where that 440 number is coming from. Right now in approved subdivisions, we have 363, and then there's the other homes throughout the city that aren't in actively being built subdivisions, but are counted in this number as which where the 440 is coming from.
Okay. 440 is including the subdivisions and individual homes, Byron.
Okay,
the 440 number encompasses everything.
Yeah, that 440 has like some of the structures that have been burnt or abandoned, things like that, but we didn't put it on this map. We wanted to show the active subdivisions that are building, and the 363 are the subdivisions that are actively building, not just delinquent lots.
Okay, that's my question was. Okay.
Yes,
so that's
where the 440 comes from as a total number. Just to give you a heads up, those are the delinquent lots and everything else included.
Okay, so I see you don't have Patricia Gardens in here.
No, sir. We did not get time without doing all this research to get that in there, but we know what the count is. I just didn't have time to get the package to y'all.
Okay, that was my question. Okay, thank you.
How many building permits, Mayor, if you don't mind, how many building permits have been issued?
Right now, there's 92 permits that are issued that are actively being built, and there's 13 being reviewed right now, fixing the issue. And then on top of that, there's the 48 homes in the South Side Sewer Project that are being hooked up as the laterals and stuff are starting to be run now. They'll be hooked up by January. So that's 153 to 155 homes.
So is the real number we need to be looking at is if we were to go to 300,000 capacity by the plant being re-rated, what's the magic number where we suddenly can't issue a building permit?
Basically what's left that's already approved would be a fair estimate. We can't, I don't feel that we can approve any more subdivisions at this point in time.
I would agree. I think you're going to have to wait until you see what the re-rating does. I'll be honest with you, I'm sort of cautious. And Tim, I'm sensitive because the numbers seem to have fluctuated back and forth now. And now we got this $300,000 or 300,000 gallons. And now that throws a whole nother deal because you just increased capacity by 33%.
25%.
We went from 200 to 300, right?
It's 240 to 300.
Okay, I apologize. I thought it was 200. I guess my question is, and it's similar to what Mr. Ambrose talked about, is we have currently right now that the city is obligated, we said we're going to do it 155. So as of right now, we have 155. And I'm going to put it in layman's language, and so type of deal. We got 155 that we've committed that you're going to get your grinder pump and you're in.
Or gravity, yes.
Or gravity, you're going to get it. So 155, we're good. So with the 155 that is going to go on, and we're at what percent with the 240, wherever we're at right now, what percent are we at, 90?
We are running at about 81, 82%.
Well, where did I get 90% from then?
We're running at 195,000 out of 240.
Okay. So if you go, Tim, if you do that, if you're doing it that one there, and if you take the 155, what percent does that raise it to? Just the 155?
Okay. I'll let you know here in just a minute. Takes you to 91%.
Okay. I'll be real brief. I wouldn't do anything more until we get the re-rate. We're at 91. Our major concern, at least in my deal is we got to make darn sure that our current users, their service is not disrupted in any way. 91% gives us some cushion in case there's a little fluctuation. And then I think we work on the funding, and then we look for the calibration on the deal, for lack of a better word, I guess, on the deal to see if it goes up. I'm not comfortable assuming or getting up much higher than that, simply because I don't want, and I'm on it. I don't want something coming back and all of a sudden this baby's backing up saying hello to me. So,
And a grinder that's hard.
and I got the grinder and we got the magician in the back there. So that would be, I mean, my thing is I appreciate it, Tim, greatly on the deal, but with the 155 pending, I'd stop it there. I don't know what we got to do. I wouldn't issue anything more until we get a firm count on where we are in the capacity. And I would even be so much, Tim, and help me out here on this one, I would be even so much to know where we're at as far as the financing to increase the capacity. That was always been my understanding is we got to build this thing out. Go ahead, Tim.
Based on our last workshop and commission's direction, we're going to be applying to the Springs for funding again, as well as the state revolving fund. We're going to have two parallel tracks of funding for the water plant, and we're going to, of course, go to SRF as well for the wastewater plant, and SRF for the water plant as well. So we're pursuing two tracks of funding for the plant expansion.
Okay, let me make one last comment on this one here, and then I'll shut up, I promise. I don't think we should go beyond the 155 to 91% until we got the funding. We're going to have to borrow money to do the water because grants, to the great degree, you don't get grants, my understanding is, on water. My feeling is on this one here is I would hold up, or else our city manager is going to work some stuff with the developers. I'm not in any way looking to take on money to increase the capacity. The citizens don't need that. We don't need to put that burden on them to bring more homes in. So my opinion on this thing here is I would hold things at the 155. I wouldn't put anything else out there until we have a firmer grasp on what the funding is and the time frame. Because Tim, once we get the funding for the capacity thing, what is the length of time to build it out construction-wise?
Construction-wise is going to be about 15 months. So again, the plan is designed so we could go to bid. Once the agreement was signed with the funding agencies, we should be able to go to bid shortly thereafter. So
right. Okay.
That will expedite things somewhat.
And I believe, is the funding still for the revolving still not available till summer, till August?
I didn't hear that.
The funding for the revolving, is it still, there's not going to be any till August?
Yes, ma'am. That is what we believe. All the DEP SRF folks expended all their wastewater money last cycle, so they're going to get replenished in August. So we would be ready for we're going to submit before that, but the funding won't be available till August. That's correct. We'll know if we got funded at that point, and then there's some agreements and things that had to be done. So you're probably looking to start construction at the beginning of 2022 is when construction would actually start.
And what percentage of the wastewater treatment plant would they fund?
They would fund all of it. They would, if they did it, assuming unless there were just another tremendous round of submittals, they would fund the entire plant. It may all be loan, and likely would be based on your income, but it would be loan. But typically they have enough money to fund. This project is not a big project as far as they're concerned. They do projects in Miami that are $100 million projects. And that's what happened last time. Miami sucked up all the money.
So with the time frame, you just said there that the money's, and I want to clarify this, the money is on 20, so we wouldn't actually start building till 22 is what you're saying.
Beginning of 22 is what we would estimate would actually start construction. That is correct.
Yeah.
And then you got 15 months on top of that,
That's
roughly.
correct. That's correct.
So 2.5 years.
Close. Mhm.
Close. Okay.
Mayor?
Yes,
I had okay, so what we're still going to go forward with the wetlands construction to increase the processing of the water output from the plant, correct?
We are still moving, we're still a little short of money on that. So we're hoping to get some money from the Springs, but that's all being asked for in both tracks of funding, the Springs funding as well.
So
as
the money we were given isn't enough to do that project.
That's correct. We do not believe there's enough money there. We're
Is
short.
there a point where we lose that funding because we haven't begun the project?
They have not indicated that. The project is designed, so they know we've moved forward to some degree, but the Water Management District is aware of that. So they have not threatened to take the money away at this point, no.
So let's say the money shows up and we start that project. So we're now constructing wetlands where we currently have had spray fields. Will that reduce the capacity of our plant while the spray fields are converted to wetlands?
It will not reduce the capacity. It is going to put more load on the spray field, the one spray field that's remaining. There's no way to avoid that. So it will have an impact on that spray field, but the soils out there are very good, and DEP would allow us to do that in the interim while it's being constructed. That wouldn't be an issue, but our groundwater's over 40 foot down, so we can put a lot more water on that spray field and it still function okay.
Okay, and then the last question is, by state statutes, what's the percentage of capacity at a point where we have to be in motion, or is it 80%? Okay.
Well,
so
they don't really do it that way anymore. What we do is we have to do what's called a capacity analysis report every year, which we do for the city, which is a report that shows where you're at capacity wise. I mean, you can run the plant capacity up to 100% if you want to, but then you have a moratorium. You say, we're not going to connect anybody else. Well, they're okay with that. You can run the plant at 100%. So there is no specific time frame where you have to do something if you're willing to take on a moratorium or reduce flow coming in. So that's just kind of how that works.
Is there any risk to running it at 100%?
No, I mean, the plant's designed to do that. So, the plant should function properly at 100%. You just can't connect anybody else once that happens without getting in trouble with the regulatory folks.
Mayor, I mean, there again, I'll state, I'm not for going to 100% because, I mean, the flow and so forth. I would like, I'd like us to cap this baby at 95 so we got some leeway to play with. There again, our citizens have to be absolutely confident that those who are currently on the system now, we're looking out for them. Bringing in new homes, in my opinion, that's great. But our main concern is making darn sure we can take care of those who are already on the system and they don't have to worry about the capacity issue. I flush my toilet, everything's going to be good. I don't have to worry about it. So I know we can't vote on anything on this one here, but okay.
I agree with you. I don't think we want to push this to 100% capacity either, because you never know. The minute you do that, something's going to happen, and we don't want to do that.
Well, I'm just conservative, and I just don't think we want to do that. And there again, I think we have to really look at the money, and I think this is something we have to look at on the funding, because we're looking at both of them, and it was like $10 million, I think, to do. Theoretically, I think that's what we were told, 6 million, 6.5 and so forth, a little over $10 million. We'd have to get to do both the sewer and the water. And the water, correct me if I'm wrong though, the money available for water is substantially less than sewer from grants.
There is more loan money available. They didn't run out of money. The water side has money. There's just no grant money available on the water side.
Right. I'm talking grant money.
Right.
So yes, thank you. So there again, we have to think about this. If you're going in, we're currently putting in a new well, but we're going to have to get a tower on the whole thing. So when we go that route, the state's going to, again, correct me if I'm wrong, the state's going to come in when we borrow the money to do the water. The state's going to come in and tell us you have to raise your rates to this certain amount because they want to be guaranteed to get the payback. So we're going to loan you the money, but you're going to have to increase your water rates this amount.
That is correct. They're going to base that on your current customers. They're not going to base your rates on future customers. They're going to base it on current customers till those other customers show up. That is correct.
Right. And so there's an expense that we're going to have to pass along. I'm just not prepared to throw another 6.5 million on there from sewer to do it. Me personally, I know the water we have to. I'm not ready to sit there and say, let's take out a $6.5 million loan on the sewer. I'm saying we don't do it until we get a grant. I mean, that's my opinion. I'm not prepared to go seriously in debt to increase the capacity on it unless something can be worked out with developers coming in type of deal on an agreement where they come in and do something, but that's why you're here. And if that can be worked out, then okay. But I'm not prepared to put the city in a position from a financial situation to take on $10 million debt. And I appreciate, Tim, the numbers on that one. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other comments?
I'm in agreement. I think the developers are going to have to help us along if they want to build any more houses.
And I can tell you from talking to some of the larger developments when they come in, some of the different developers we've talked to, there is a desire to help with this, to pay up front. There's a lot of things. We got a meeting tomorrow with one, a couple meetings next week that we're trying to iron some of this stuff out. Hopefully that's some better news for the commission once we start talking to these developers. City manager and I have been beating this up pretty hot and heavy and getting with these folks and trying to come up with some alternative ways to fund this project because it is a financial burden. I understand you're talking about, talking to Commissioner Jameson about stopping at these 155. I know we can't make any decisions tonight, but stopping at these 155 still leaves 208 buildable lots in the city that we've already approved, just to make you aware, just so you know.
We've approved those on the plats, correct?
Those are the ones that are either existing home, existing lots that have derelict home on that need to be taken care of, or actively in subdivisions that are being built right now. Like one of the subdivisions is Oak Ridge 3 and 4. They're one of the ones with these 13 permits we're waiting on right now. They're fixing to bring in some more.
Yeah.
So that's running pretty hot and heavy as a subdivision right now. Bailey Estates is about done and built out in their current configuration. So DR Horton has moved into Oak Ridge and they're going to stay on that rate of probably about 10 to 12 permits a month.
So,
just letting you know.
So Rich, this is a question for you. Would we have to put something on a future council meeting if we are going to, once we hit 95% capacity, stop continuing to issue permits, if that's a possibility?
Yes, Manager, we would want to put that on the agenda and probably propose it as an ordinance, and it would be the effect of it would be a moratorium. We have looked a little bit at the case law as it exists today in Florida on this issue, and with respect to those 200 plus lots, obviously, I think if Oak Ridge is involved, there's obviously a completely separate history with that development. So we probably have to take a closer look there with respect to phases 3 and 4. But generally speaking, as long as we can state a public purpose in our ordinance, basically the developer in that case is going to have to put together a very compelling case that it's completely deprived of all economically beneficial use of the land. And as long as a moratorium is of temporary nature, and in our ordinance, we put a sunshine provision in it that would have a deadline, it's usually a pretty difficult argument. There's a lot of case law in Florida that exists that states public policy reasons behind giving a local government the ability to make that decision. So yes, answer is yes, we would want to put that on the agenda here in the near future.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Questions? Concern?
We're going to talk about water separate. Okay.
All right, Tim, you want to bring us into water? Or
Sure.
Commissioner James, your question?
Well, I guess what I'm asking, I guess the city manager, you guys will get and figure out, and something's going to go on, like a discussion, an action item or something on what we're going to do on this, like in the January meeting, one of the two or whatever you call it, we're going to come back and have something on there to where we can have something, because I don't like the unknown, and I apologize. I don't like not knowing. I like to know, and I think the
Yeah.
people need to know, and it's not like a crapshoot. Well, 6 months, you follow what I'm saying?
Yes, sir. And my suggestion from a staff standpoint is we probably need to do this like the first meeting in January to start really figuring out if we're going to do the moratorium then or we're going to do it. But we need to start really looking at how we're going to address this. Because if we don't, we're going to be above that 95% that you would like to be at
Right.
real quick if we're not careful.
Well, with the 155, you're at 91%, and you said there's how many?
285 billable. There's about 208 left over in the active subdivisions. Oak Ridge is pulling the most permits right now. 76 lots. They're sitting at about 60 lots still available to build on right now.
So
So
let me ask you a question.
Yes.
This is, so I'm watching this workshop, and I'm hearing what's being said. I'm coming in tomorrow and I'm pulling all my permits tomorrow because I want to make sure I'm on.
absolutely.
So my question is what do we, at what point do we sit there and say, I'm sorry, I can't give you a permit? I'm sorry.
And that's going to be at the direction of the attorneys and the city manager on what they're going to
Is
direct
it-
staff to do and how to handle that. 'Cause
Rich, you follow me, man? I mean, if I'm out there and if I've got it, I'm going to come in and I'm going to start pulling permits and put the money out there so I've got it. But if they pull so many and we can't provide it, I mean, somebody help me out here.
I mean, do we call an emergency meeting, a special meeting, and pass the ordinance? Is that an option?
We certainly can do that, and what Commissioner Jameson is describing is one of the reasons we have moratorium laws is to prevent a developer from racing out and doing exactly that. So we could, we could schedule a couple special meetings and have something passed relatively quickly. And I would actually, to staff, I would just recommend that if they are experiencing that situation, give us a call so we can maybe evaluate it on a case-by-case basis, or at least help.
So, one more question. I mean, our plant, when we started the sewer system, it was designed that there'd be an expansion, in phase 3, 4, that in theory should have happened years ago, and it didn't. What about the infrastructure between where we're seeing all the requests for these developments and expansion and getting the waste to the plant? Are the lines all of adequate size, or is there also a hidden cost to taking on this additional building and suddenly we don't have lines that are big enough to handle the flow to the actual plant?
Well, and I'll let Tim answer the majority of this, but for the case of Oak Ridge ran that line. There are lift stations in those areas, like Cinnamon Hills lift station was part of that subdivision. The Southside lift station is part of that. So everything should be sufficient. Now, as larger subdivisions come in, we've talked about Terra Meadows, so I'll talk about them briefly. They would be required to do something. So, and I'll let Tim finish it from there.
Yes, that's typically the case, depending where the development occurs and what the existing infrastructure is in there, the developer may have to incur costs to run new lines or upsize lines to serve his development. And those agreements can be made with the city, developer agreements where he can recover some of that cost if he provides additional capacity and those type of things. But again, it's tough to know. It all kind of depends where the development's going to occur and what the existing infrastructure that's in place to make a determination as to whether it needs to be upsized or not.
And I I think that's a reason why we would want to do a water and sewer master plan, is so I think that that helps us know these type of things, because it's based on the densities of your comp plan, and then as new developments come in, it could change some based on the densities.
So where are we at on the sewer? What are we doing before we go to water? I mean, I just in the deal, we're going to have a meeting in January, we're going to address this and we're going to take some action or so forth. As far as the sewer, that's where we're at on this right now.
That's what I think, and I think everybody's in agreement on that. And I'll just keep an eye on the building permits, and if things start getting real goofy, I'll get with the manager and we'll make some provisions, get with the commission. If we got to call an emergency meeting before now in January, if it gets out of whack, we'll get with y'all and schedule an emergency meeting and get something going. We got to get it going faster.
There's typically, just because they, and correct me if I'm wrong, Rich, but just because they submit for a building permit, we don't have to issue it. I mean, you typically have the review time and all of that. So that gives us some time to call Rich and get it going. And we can monitor it on a day-by-day basis. And, you know, if we get a day where a big stockpile comes in, then that's going to kind of trigger.
We have 30 days to turn it around.
Yeah.
Requirements. So we have time, just because if I have 40 or 50 or 100 come in tomorrow, just out of nowhere, we're going to kind of have to back up and schedule a meeting and get together and make some hard decisions. We're at the point of making hard decisions now. It's just going to be how quick we do it.
Something in our favor right now is actually the holidays, because, you know, people typically aren't as busy during the holidays. On the building side, you have some people who actually build who go home
Right.
during that time, who aren't actually undergoing construction, and then they come back after the holidays. So that might mean they can't really start. So
I just want to make sure as we go through this, I'm being redundant and talking, but the citizens have to be able to trust that we've got their best interests and we're doing what's best for the city. And we're not bringing in these guys, bringing in their money into the deal, but we're making darn sure our infrastructure is adequate. And so I think that's our main issue, that we got to make darn sure. And I don't like gambling. I don't like somebody coming in. You'll never see me in Vegas. I don't gamble. And I'm not trying to be a smart aleck, but we need to be cautionary on this and take the appropriate steps, preemptive steps now, to get this thing in place to where the citizens have confidence. And then when the new divisions, subdivisions or so forth start coming in, arrangements can be made with them. The city manager and so forth you can have arrangements to where some of the cost is on the deal. So.
And I can tell you with all confidence, we're exploring every option right now.
I got you.
Outside of the state revolving fund, outside of grants, we are tapping into these developers and we're looking at some things right now. We're going to exhaust all options at this point.
we're going to look at we're not only leaning on the state revolving fund. We're going to, like Bruce said, we are going to talk to our financial advisors to see what other options are out there. And we are also going to be talking to the developers, and everything and anything's on the table to try to solve this problem right now. And we're going to pursue every single path until we get to a solution.
Hey, Tim, can you, not in this meeting, but maybe tomorrow, get with me, and knowing we have, say, 155 homes going in right now, kind of give me a rough guesstimate of how many permits we have left, just so I can give the building department a target mark before we hit that magic 95%.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
That sounds good. Thank you.
All right. Now we are on to water.
Okay.
Permitted for 1.5 million. Currently flowing 610. There was a question about the third well. It is currently in permitting phase still. We paid part of it. As soon as we get the permitting part back, we'll start moving forward with the rest of that project. So that's where we're at. I spoke to Rodney prior to the meeting. Hopefully sometime right after the first year, we'll go back from water management. We'll have an idea of what we're doing, and I'll turn the rest of this over to Tim and let him explain the current state of our water system.
Okay, thank you. All right, again, the water plants are are sized a little different than wastewater plants. Water plants are sized based on maximum daily flow, that you have to have enough water for your maximum daily flow, which is typically twice what your average daily flow is. So to just compare apples to apples between water and wastewater, we're going to say the water plant's a 700,000 gallon per day average daily flow and a 1.4 million gallon per day max daily flow in its current situation. We're estimating current flows are about 621,000 gallons a day, which leaves you about 74,000 gallons of available capacity right now. Again, with the same influx of building and development that we have that we showed on the sewer side, looks like, the water plant's going to be, basically out of capacity or close to it in 2023 at our current rate of build out. So again, we can cheat a little more on the water side. It's that maximum daily flow, so we can eat into that a little bit and not be in trouble with the regulatory folks. But the day is coming, we'll have to address the water side as well, and it's a few years away. But we probably need to have something in place by 2023, 2024 if we're going to keep moving forward. Now, these numbers you see here do not reflect the new well. That reflects your current situation with 2 wells.
What's the timeline, do you think, for the new well? I mean, we're in permitting. How fast we have a well in the ground all the way to the point where it's permitted to actually supply water into the municipal system? What's the timeline?
We're not involved in that project directly. I'm not sure are you ready to go to bid, or where are you at in the process?
We're still in the permitting phase, Tim.
Okay. Typically, it's going to take, to bid, it's going to take 2 months, and to construct a well typically takes 5 to 6 months. By the time you go through all the testing and pumping and all those kind of things, you're probably looking at 5 to 6 months.
So the soft goal from talking to them is sometime in the 4th quarter of next year. So sometime between September and the 1st of next year.
What?
2021.
What?
The well being complete in the ground.
Complete.
Permitted.
A year from now.
Yeah, at the end of next year, the 4th quarter of next year.
Okay. Completed.
That's the goal. If everything falls in line, right, it could bleed a little bit into 2022, but that project's a lot farther along at this point. We're just, like I said, we're in the permitting phase right now. So we get that back in January. Engineering's done with them. Got a couple little pieces put together. Go out to bid, say as early as probably middle of February. Get it back sometime in April. Start breaking ground by summer would be the hope.
Okay.
But those are all soft goals until we hear back from water management.
Okay. And the reason I asked that question is my concern is those wells are so old that all of these numbers could mean nothing in a moment.
Yeah.
So anything that can be done to fast track that process or put some urgency behind it, I think needs to be done.
Well, once permitting's done, it's just pretty much getting our ducks in a row and just getting with water management, making sure we have all our packet together, everything's good to go, and then it goes out to bid. So as soon as we get it back to them, we just got to get our butts in gear and get it rolling. So we're waiting on them at this point.
We'll follow up with them.
You need to do something. Just don't sit there.
I'll drive up there, I'll find out.
Okay.
An estimate of what they think that 3rd well's going to be?
Cost wise?
Yeah.
I think they were somewhere around 245 to 300, if I'm not mistaken. That's off the top of my head, I have it written down somewhere, but I would say 300 just for budgetary sake, be safe.
Yeah, because even if it means normally you'd wait for that permit to come back before you go out and ask for the bid, because things are going to have to be done around that. But do we want to build a potential pool of people who want to bid on this so they've got it on their radar?
I know Rodney's working on some things, and I know some things have been done. I think Rodney's on, if I'm not mistaken. He may be able to answer that a little bit better. Where we're at on that process. I'll be honest with you, I've been so focused on the wastewater side of things, because that was an immediate need. Not that water is not an immediate need, but that was the urgency right now as far as building permits and everything else goes. That I was letting, but Rodney's been really handling the water side and getting things going.
Well, one of the things with the pandemic,
okay.
the cost of building. We realized that when CDBG went out to bid, it was, and that'll be brought back to the commission, but with the pandemic, the cost of building something is 30% higher. What they're averaging. So, you know, if the well does go to April, or it might be even better, if you can call it that.
Yeah, I hear you.
You know, they're starting to actually produce stuff again. So.
I got you. That makes sense.
And one thing to make everyone aware of, on the water side, the city has a consumptive use permit, which water management grants you a certain amount you're able to withdraw from the ground, which is roughly 1.5 million gallons a day, is what your current consumptive use permit allows. That's going to expire in November of 2022. So it's going to have to be renewed. And that's a 20-year-old permit. A lot of things have changed in the last 20 years. You're in a primary focus area with the springs and those kind of things. So we've recommended a meeting with water management to get a feel as to what they're looking for as far as consumptive use. And there's no guarantee they'll even allow us what our current withdrawal is. So that's something that can have a big impact on development and those kind of things. So we're looking to have a meeting with them in the near future to see what allowable withdrawals will be and what alternative things we can do to conserve water to get an increased withdrawal. So just to make you aware of that.
We're on it.
We're on it.
Tim, this is me being a smart aleck on the deal, but I'm always concerned when it says in the near future. I mean, is there a timeline? We need to do this in the near future. That seems to always go out further and further in government. For some reason, it keeps going.
2021 is going to be busy.
I'm just saying, but near future, we talking as soon as we get back from the break, we're pursuing it?
Well,
I'm just trying to get-
meeting with the city and water management staff whenever everyone can meet. So we're willing to do that before the holidays if people can meet that schedule.
Who's driving, setting that meeting up? Is that us?
I'll
Is that
set it
you?
up and I'll coordinate. Bruce and I will coordinate with our city engineer to get that going.
Okay. I just don't want to see it sort of drop with the holidays and all of a sudden the near future becomes.
It is right there with the sewer project.
Right, I know, but I'm
It's
just.
I got the well going on right now, which Rodney's following up on permits and stuff like that. We got the rated capacity for the water plant that we're looking at that's due for renewal in November that we're dealing with. We've got sewer project, which is what we're dealing with right now. So we're just, whatever meetings we can get scheduled when right now, we're just moving chess pieces around. So it's all priorities right now. And we're gonna hit that wall right before Christmas. We're gonna hit that wall right between New Year's. But when I have a strong suspicion with the new city manager, and then we come rolling back in on January 5th, it's gonna be wide open.
Okay.
And that's all I got on this. Any other questions?
Anything else?
So we moved, but what about the well field? You're applying for grants on that? Or you're looking at numbers for a well field in addition to the third well? Or are we gonna is a third well gonna be sufficient in the same location?
What?
Dan, do you want to answer that or you want me to get it?
Well, again, we just don't have much involvement in that third well, so I really can't speak.
So the third well is going where the current location is. They've already done test bores. We know where it's going. That part's handled down there, but Tim's got the second water plant project on your plate. That is something that's gonna have to come down the line, whether we do this third well or not. So that's when we're going back to that near future word, but what's the timeline on the second plant?
That's my question.
Well, we'll be submitting the request for inclusion here along with the others in the next week. So that'll get us in line for potential funding. And then we kind of have to wait on the folks at SRF to do their evaluation. And the next step is to do the planning and design of that system if the city is ready to move forward.
But that's where the second, that's where we're talking, when we were talking like, when I was saying the 10 million, that's where
That's that second.
funding, that's not grant money. So that I just want to make sure
That's
so
loan money.
everybody knows in the water, they provide funding, it's at a low interest rate, but that's where we have to
Those are rate adjustments.
Right,
all that
okay.
stuff.
I just want to make sure we understand that, but we need to get it going because you can't keep having houses be built and keep the same water.
It's gonna have to be addressed. The third well's gotta be addressed.
Right.
Which is what we're working on. And then funding for the third well, I don't know quite where we're at on that. I know there was some discussion and things. So,
I have not had it, but we'll have to.
yeah, I mean, that number's just kind of come out recently, so.
And really, it's gonna come down to when we actually bid, but I'll work with the city manager and we'll have something set up. But then that money is available, right? Tim, that money for the water in the revolving is available.
I
I
didn't
don't
hear
think you
that.
heard you.
State revolving fund money for water is available.
Yes, they have money available. That's correct.
And is there like a minimum that they want you, I mean, if we were to use it for, I'm not sure.
Typically, it doesn't make a lot of sense to do a project less than 500,000 because there's just too many soft costs associated with it that you have to do regardless of how large the project is. So you wouldn't want to do an SRF project for $100,000 thing. You'd spend that much just in trying to get the money. So that doesn't make sense. So you'd want a project that's of some size, again, probably 500,000, somewhere in that range is the minimum you'd want to do through SRF.
Yeah, I'm thinking that once it goes out to bid, we're probably looking at 4 to 5.
I was thinking, yeah, by the time hookups.
So, but that is, okay. So I'll get some other options as well.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, from a supply side, okay, we're moving forward, we're working on the third well. And we all need to realize with these numbers, given all those wells are co-located, we won't know about the third well until it's in the ground. If we have a major storm event that causes flooding on the Santa Fe,
We know.
our wells can all work just fine, but one of them is going to go offline because the water quality won't be adequate.
Right.
So,
Now, I will say the third well is, I mean, it's located on the St. Pete's property, but it's probably a quarter of a mile to third of a mile away from where the current wells are. So just to give you an idea.
yeah, and it's going to be deeper and wider and 16-inch and all that. But
All that good
so, and then people often complain about the taste of the water, and we're often having to, open lines up and drain things. Is there any infrastructure? Like years ago, there was conversation about tying together the ends. Our system spiders out, and there was conversation about tying together water lines at dead end so there'd be better circulation, which is a capital expense. It doesn't make us necessarily any money, but it improves water quality, flow, and pressure. Have we identified any of those projects that would make sense to be looking at over the next 36 months?
I think what we're wanting to do is
matches.
work on a 5-year CIP. Do you have anything, Tim, or do we have anything?
There's nothing formal put together at this point, no.
Yeah, we've had some discussions about it. We've got some areas identified. We had like boat ramp to 441 was one of them. I can tell you, Rodney's got some, we've been discussing about putting some blow-offs in. We've got some discussion within the current budget, just looking at some troubled areas, just on those dead-end areas, some things we've been needing to do, just looking at what the cost is going to be for that we can do within our current budget. So those are some of the things we've been looking at. This water project in the northwest side that we're fixing to do on the CBG grant that'll be coming forward to the commission here shortly. That's going to fix some water quality issues. We still have a lot of piping around that needs to be replaced, and that's going to be some issues, and it's going to have to be addressed at some point. The nice thing is with some of the new subdivisions and where they're going and some of the thought processes as we get to that point, we'll tie together some of the areas that aren't currently tied together. So that'll fix some of those areas. We haven't really, I don't want to say we haven't targeted those areas, but as those subdivisions that come about that we know that are being proposed, those have fallen off, and we've gone back and looked at some of the other areas that we need to. We had an area looking that Mr. Booth was working on, 27 on the boat ramp area, connecting to 441 to try to get that line to loop through, which is a dead end area. There's a hydrant meter that sits down there and runs constantly because it's a problem area. Not that there's a problem with the water, it's just we got to keep the water flowing. And trying to tie those together. And then there was another area down on 27 down here, coming across to Boat Ramp Road and connecting it that way, going through Ashton Ridge, through that area, trying to come across what's called Bush 13 and connecting everything together there as well. We had some property lined up, we had some easement stuff, but some things didn't quite work out, so we had to back up and punt on that project.
Okay.
So we know the needs there, we have some ideas, it's just, right now it's funding. I mean, what are we gonna do, funding wise? I mean, if you give me an open checkbook, I can fix every bit of this. But I mean, back to the loans, we start taking loans out, we start fixing this stuff. Water is not prevalent to grants. Tim will tell you that it's some issues there. So we've got to make sure as we're doing these projects, we're doing them smart and how we're tying things together. And that's where looking at it hot and heavy right now. Tim and I've talked about, I don't know, I talked to Tim more than I talked to my wife at this point. So, I mean, we're constantly communicating and looking at different ways to do this. And we've talked to developers about different things as well.
There
Well, I
would be
think there has to
something,
be enough.
if the city decides to move forward with the water project, part of that would do a plan there as far as addressing, it's not just the plant, it's also part of the transmission system. So that would look at potentially looping and doing things like that to improve water quality, as well as provide greater volume and pressure of water throughout the whole system. So those are things to be looked at. It couldn't all be built at one time, obviously just due to cost, but we'd try to prioritize some of those areas and look at doing some things to loop the system and help flows and eliminate some of the stagnant water there.
And you know, to echo on that, we got to look at this water and sewer master plan too. That's something that's going to have to be a priority that we're going to have to look at as well. It's going to help us identify a lot of this as well. We looked a few years back, and Tim tried helping us to look at a hydrostatic model of the city. We just don't have the data that we need, just the historical data we need to be able to provide this information so they can complete their plan. Mainly due to changeover of engineers, different thought process, different philosophies. We just don't have the information. So we're kind of flying blind in some areas, and we're working through it. It's just something that should have been relatively simple, if you will, in the grand scheme of things, that we should have been able to put data together that we have. We're trying to do it. We're trying to find X. It's made it a little more cumbersome, but we've been working through it.
Anything else? Any other comments?
I'd like to thank Tim for being here, and I'd like to thank Bruce. It's nice to know our fire chief. I think I joke around a lot, but it's nice that our fire chief has taken on and done such a good job on this stuff. I just think the water and the sewer, we got these developments, but we also got to remember the current homes and the people who are here, and their service cannot be affected due to, you know what I mean? They gonna have.
Anyway,
We got to take care of our existing customers.
That's right.
That's right.
We got to focus on what we have before we can start.
they got to come first.
Well, and the one tank we have at the sewer plant is gonna wear out.
No, it's not.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's just part of taking care of the current residents on the system. We rely on one steel plant that's being used many years past what it was intended to.
We have the same issue with water at this point.
Mhm.
We're living on 76 system at this point, and we got one water tower, 2 wells. I won't say we've outgrown it, but we're getting there. So we got to look at both, and unfortunately, it's a need that we're all going to have to deal with. And we're to a point where we can't kick the can down the road anymore. We've got to make sure we address this and address it thoroughly. We got to make sure we're spending tax dollars appropriately, and we're doing it smartly.
Agreed.
I mean, it's like, here's an example, and this is just something to put in the back of your mind. We need to take the water tower offline right now because it's due for maintenance on the inside of the tank. It needs to be painted. It's required to be done. It needs to happen. We're on hold right now because of the south side project in case they hit any main lines. Not that they're doing anything wrong. It's just precautionary. But if we break a major line while that's down, our wells aren't going to be able to keep up. We'll be citywide bowl of water. So these are things that we need to pay attention to. And that's part of why this third well is so important at this point in time. And the second plant is important. And the sewer plant expansion is just as equally important because we've got all this stuff going on. And everything we do has a reaction, and we just need to make sure we're handling it appropriately. I appreciate everything. I appreciate your time. I wish I could have delivered better news to everybody tonight, but we needed to have the meeting.
Appreciate it.
We thank you for all the information.
Welcome.
Is that it?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Meeting adjourned
Thank you.
at 7:33 by my clock.